What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about if Cyberpunk 2077 will be worth all the hype. So this is the official start of my Cyberpunk series. I do it pretty much for every game series, any game that comes out. So if you guys do like that, if you guys like constant coverage on pretty much any game, and I'm bound to hit a game, by the way, that you guys are probably eventually into, make sure you guys are subscribed to this channel. Make sure you leave this video a like. And also, I have a second channel. It's called Podcast Now Plus. I do a lot of gaming and movie news stories, also some spicier topics as well. If you guys could subscribe there as well. Again, Podcast Now Plus. The link for it is in the description below. But of course, supporting me anywhere, this channel, that channel, any of my other stuff. So this is important. I think there's become a thing online with where it's kind of popular to jump on the bandwagon for Cyberpunk. There's also, and not just Cyberpunk, because there's actually two games. There's it's all the rage to jump on the bandwagon for Cyberpunk and Miles Morales. And then there's also a separate, it's like on a different road. It's like going the other way on the street with a carriage. That one is the hate train, and that one is also for Cyberpunk and Miles. And I see it quite often where there's a lot of people throwing, again, whether they love it or whether they think it's very, very, I don't necessarily know if anybody says that these games are going to be awful, and obviously Cyberpunk's the discussion for today. I don't know anybody, I don't think, even in my own community, I haven't seen anybody that say, this game is just going to be point blank the worst game ever created. But I do see a lot of people saying, this game is highly, highly overrated. Well, here's what I'll say. I've always been again, I've talked about it, like I'm really big into like your rights, like constitutional rights. So you can have whatever opinion you want to have. That's completely cool, and all opinions, as long as they're not super hurtful, or hurtful, I guess, probably in general, right? They're welcome. No, really seriously though, if there's anybody new here, I do respect all opinions. You can have whatever opinion you want. I know not a lot of you, especially in the world we live in now, not a lot of YouTube channels do that. What I will say though is it's okay to agree and it's okay to disagree. And so if we don't agree, that's totally cool. I think that I don't agree with the people that say that it's overrated. Now, it does all depend on where you put your expectations. So Cyberpunk is not a game I've talked about all that much. Okay, I talk about all different kinds of games. I talk about all different kinds of movies. Cyberpunk has been one that I just haven't talked about, and it's kind of because I don't have too much to say about it. And, talking about how I'm gonna do like weekly videos on this game now leading into its release, and then I'll be covering it a ton afterwards. I feel like Cyberpunk is a really good game to cover post-launch, but not really as much pre-launch, because to me, I don't have that much to say about it. I think it is now this is not this, I'll explain. I would say that this game is like a safe game. And what do I mean by safe? I say safe in the same way that I said safe for Crash Bandicoot and maybe even like Miles Morales, where I go in not really thinking or expecting all that much. And not like I expect like it to be bad. I just don't actually have those expectations because they're just games that I think are going to nail what they're trying to do. So again, I use Crash as an example. I use Miles. Crash is already out, so that's a fantastic one. I'm a huge Crash Bandicoot guy. I went in there. I didn't really expect all that much from that game. I watched quite a bit of gameplay, but I stopped around the last month before the game came out, and I'm blown away. The game just does everything it needs to do. It's a Crash game through and through, and I love it. It's one of my favorite games of the year. It's one of my favorite Crash Bandicoot games of all time, okay? But I didn't really have worries for it. It was like, they could make this mistake, that mistake, but in general, I'm not really expecting all that much from it. Miles, kind of the same way. Now, again, Miles isn't out yet, so we can't judge the product, but Cyberpunk, I would almost throw in the exact same thing. Look, CD Projekt Red has my trust, and I think they have and maybe that's where the people that say, is it going to be overrated, all that kind of stuff, maybe that's where it comes from, right? Because you have CD Projekt Red. I think they nailed it out of the park with The Witcher 3, right? But not everybody has to think, firstly, not everybody thinks that, and nobody has to think that in general, right? Up to you. Cyberpunk is going to be a different game, so CD Projekt Red, to me, proved that they can do the open world, RPG genre better than I would say pretty much anybody. Maybe there's some, and I know people get very excited for like Hogwarts Legacy. I cover Hogwarts Legacy quite a bit. We can say all we want, like, is that going to be the greatest open world game ever? But in reality, Well, even if it was, who would we be comparing it to? I think The Witcher 3 is still the benchmark for open world. There's a few others, but I would say Witcher 3 is the benchmark for open world games. I guess open world RPG games, okay? I really do think they nailed that. So looking ahead to Cyberpunk, well, it is going to be different, and that could bring, that even in a way, if I really have to think about it hard, that could worry me, right? Because if they do a Witcher 4, which, again, they're going to do a new Witcher game after this, and we know that, right? They've said that I would say is even more safe because that they know how to do those kind of games, okay? This one is, well, let's take what we did with The Witcher and let's change a lot of stuff up. Like first person, we're going to have a lot of gun combat, stuff like that. I mean, this is going to be much, much different, and it's just going to feel, look, all that stuff. It's going to be different than what we've done in the past. So when you do something like that, I mean, yeah, you kind of start with a blank slate. I still think they have my trust because, again, they haven't messed up, so why would you just suddenly not trust them? But I will say that you are going into this kind of, it's really like any studio that makes one kind of game, and then they make something completely different. Kind of like if you look back with Naughty Dog, they did the Uncharted games. Uncharted's my favorite franchise of all time. When they did The Last of Us, I mean, I trusted them because it's like, well, you've never steered me wrong with Uncharted, but I mean, it's a brand new game. You could totally mess up The Last of Us, and a lot of people think they probably did with The Last of Us Part 2, right? So you have those situations in gaming, and I think that Cyberpunk, could it be something like that? Yeah, but I really feel like Cyberpunk is going to be really, I mean, at the very worst, I think it's going to be really solid. The thing that's interesting with Cyberpunk is here's what's, I think, probably going to happen. If the game, quote-unquote, isn't as good, and that's all subjective, by the way, I feel like this game is going to be a rock solid, really good game, okay? The only thing I think it may fail at is it may not be maybe equal to The Witcher 3, or it may not be better than The Witcher 3. And to some people, you would look at that as a disappointment, okay? To me, I haven't even really thought of that, right? Maybe we can have a video discussing, does this have to be better than The Witcher? And we can talk about that in a different video. But I think that's where, the discourse is going to come from. I think that's where the main talking points of the game is going to be. It's they lost their touch, or they couldn't do this as well as The Witcher 3. And I think what may happen there is you're going to have people maybe just upset, again, that it didn't reach the height of maybe their favorite game of all time. It may not be better than their favorite game of all time or the best game of all time in The Witcher. Again, that's up to the person. And then you may have other people jumping on, people that may not even be in the group, and say, oh, see, look, they can't do it. They couldn't do it. Again, I look at this game as everything looks good. Do I think it looks like the most exciting? I mean, I've gone on record. It could be hot takes, but I mean, really, throughout this year, Final Fantasy VII Remake right now is my game of the year. I've been pumping up Watch Dogs Legion for a long time. I'm so excited for that game. I'm really excited for Demon Souls. I'm really excited for Immortals, Phoenix Rising. I mean, I'm into a lot of different. I'm gonna get Cyberpunk. I'm gonna get Miles. I'm gonna get Assassin's Creed. I'm gonna get games that a lot of other people are getting. But I think just generally, I do tend to gravitate, or maybe I tend to promote even on this channel, I tend to promote other games. So I think just by that, my own personal opinion is I'm ready for Cyberpunk. I'm going to play it day one. I cannot wait to play it day one. Games like this are always very hard for me to beat. I have a real hard time just in general beating, sitting down and just going through an entire game. It's probably the hardest thing you could ask me to do, really, honestly, out of anything, okay? So I don't know if this is going to be a game that I'm going to end up beating. I can tell you right now, I have not yet beat. I know Witcher 3. I haven't beaten it, though, okay? So these games, I try to do everything the game has to offer, and I end up, when you go down that rabbit hole, you end up, not doing anything. I think Colin Moriarty, right, formerly of Kind of Funny, an IGN, I think he has kind of that same problem. So I'm excited for it. At the same time, I can honestly tell you, I think I'm excited for other games. So even I kind of see it. I mean, the people pumping it up to be the greatest game of all time, I mean, I get it. I don't think I don't ever want to go after people for doing that. And I don't think anybody should, because even you can call them guilty pleasures. You can call them just being passionate. Out of all the movies, okay, I'm super pumped for Fast and Furious 9 and 10. It's is everybody thinking that? No. I'm very excited for Scream 5. Or Scream, whatever they're going to call it. That may be my most anticipated film, going forward in the next 2 years. Is that going to be for everybody? No. I mean, you could look at that and say, well, you're just stupid. You know what I mean? Same same thing with games. I mean, I'm into, again, like Watch Dogs. I'm super pumped for. I was very excited for Crash. So it's all very subjective. It's up to the person. I'm ready for Cyberpunk. I'm going to play it a ton. I'm not going to go after the people that say that they're hoping that's their favorite game of all time. I think it has the potential to, and that's another thing. I mean, and we'll talk about that in a different video. Witcher 3, I think, set the benchmark in 2015, and it really has kept it. I mean, even me, as someone who hasn't beaten it, but I mean, I've watched it. I know what happens. I've watched a lot of different things on it. I mean, it is from just a game perspective, it is a spectacular game that sets the benchmark in so many different ways. And honestly, a lot of, now maybe visuals haven't been right, but a lot of world building and how you do quests and how you do the open world, a lot of that stuff has not been beaten. And it's been over 5.5 years at this point. It's been 5.5 years since that game came out. And again, a lot of people have now said, okay, well, does Cyberpunk do that next step? Is Cyberpunk going to be the benchmark for how to make an open world game? It very well could be. It very well could be. And I get that something with that high of expectations or that high of thought, I think will just automatically not even just bring, because I don't want to call people that don't like this game haters. I don't think that's right? In case that you guys are. I don't think that, that happens. I think that just brings like skepticism of people like, well, you're kind of overvaluing what the game is. And that's, again, totally cool. I think that's what kind of makes me and my channel pretty different. So I'm excited for it. I want to hear from you guys in the comments below. What do you think? Do you think this game is overrated, overhyped? Do you think it's going to live up to the hype? All that good stuff. Let me know. Again, I'll be covering this game, I would say weekly, at least weekly, maybe a couple videos a week, every single week until the game comes out, and then we'll be covering the game, when that happens. So, again, if you guys like that, make sure you leave a like on this video. Make sure you guys are subscribed, have the bell icon turned on, and also subscribe to my second channel, Podcast Now Plus. The link for that will be in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I truly do appreciate it. I hope to see you all on the next video.